everyone, and welcome to another Heart for PCOS interview. You are in for a very special treat today, and I am so excited for this interview with our guest today, Molly Thompson, who is joining us for the 10th anniversary of Heart for PCOS. Molly is the owner, photographer, and recipe creator behind What Molly Made. She focuses on healthy, approachable meals the whole family will love. Her hope is that the recipes help women nourish their bodies with meals they look forward to eating. The recipes on her site have helped her overcome her PCOS diagnosis, which we're going to talk about today, and gather her family around the table. And her mission is to help other women do the same. Welcome, Molly. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, for many of us living with PCOS, one of the difficulties is getting a diagnosis, and then once we are diagnosed, figuring out what it all means. And I think you actually did a blog post on that. So how did your journey with PCOS start?
So I have like many women, my journey to a PCOS diagnosis was not linear. It was like, all over the place. I had been on birth control from the time I was like 16 because of symptoms of, PCOS. At the time I didn't know I had it, and so they put me on the pill, and like many women, I think I was on it for like 10 years. I came off of it, and I was having kind of like all the same issues. Simultaneously, my husband and I had just got married, and long story short, he has a hereditary heart condition. So we actually went down the IVF route just to like get just to start the process, because for the heart condition, not for the PCOS. And I happened to be in the doctor's office, and I had to do like a quick intake form for that, really, but it was for like kind of like my husband and all that stuff going on. And they sat me down and they're like, it sounds like you have PCOS. And I was like, huh? And mind you, I had seen like, like many women, 2 or 3 different doctors, been, written off, blown off. No, you're fine. You're just stressed. Like, eat less carbs, go on a diet, whatever. So when they said that to me, I was like, no, 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 no. And my oldest sister, I have 2 older sisters. My oldest sister was diagnosed with PCOS when she was young. And I was like, well, I wrote on my thing that my sister has that. But I don't. And they were like, it looks like you do. And I was having, all the typical difficulty losing weight, very, very irregular periods. Like I should have been like, duh, I do. So they did the ultrasound that day and confirmed it. And I think from the time that I got off birth control and like really started pursuing, like trying to figure out why I fell off, till then it was like a couple of years, which I think like they say the average to get a PCOS diagnosis is like at least 2 years. So it's pretty wild. I'm one of those women that it took a while. I wasn't actually, like it was only 2018, but in 2018 compared to 2023, I think a lot has changed thanks to people like you. And like, there's so much more awareness about it now. And I feel like maybe I would have tried to pursue like, hey, is this PCOS? But he was just like, oh, you have PCOS. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to the start of my like healing journey, I guess.
So you had heard about PCOS prior to being diagnosed from your sister, but did you really kind of like understand what that meant at that point?
I really didn't, because like, how PCOS is a spectrum. You can have totally different symptoms, and I wouldn't say I've had very similar symptoms to my oldest sister. She had a lot of like the insulin, like her discoloration of her skin, and hair growth, and like heavy, and like I had more of like just like a different PCOS. And I felt like I used to have that like stereotype, because that, like, you know what I mean? And it really opened my eyes. So like I did, but I didn't, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. And it's really important that you talk about how there were some similarities and some differences, because PCOS really needs to be individualized. And not everybody fits in that one little box. There are lean women that have PCOS. There are
Yeah.
obese women. There are women that are considered average weight, whatever that is nowadays, that have
Right.
PCOS. So it really, like you said, is a spectrum. So it's important to recognize that. So after you were diagnosed, did you feel that there were enough resources or tools out there to help you understand the condition and ultimately find the help in treating?
Yeah, so because I was feeling off, I had started kind of like my own personal research of like hormones because I just felt like it was a hormone thing, like in my gut and my heart. I didn't really know what it was, but like so I started doing my own research and I found a couple of resources that I felt were really good and like podcasts. So when I got to my diagnosis and they said like you have PCOS, I knew like a little bit more about it than when I did, right when my sister was diagnosed. And I knew enough to say that I did not want to be medicated. They tried to get me back on the pill and put me on metformin like immediately. And I knew enough to say that is not what I want. And that was a personal choice for me. I know like that's a personal choice for everybody. So for me, that's when I knew enough to know what I wanted. And after that, I just felt like there was enough, um, just enough. You know what I mean? Like just enough to overwhelm you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, where you
The
start your online research and there's all these, I mean, because if you think about it, there's PCOS is a spectrum. There's like 4 different types of PCOS. There's different triggers there, so you could be reading something from someone who has a totally different type of PCOS than you and totally different symptoms. And you're like, or you know what I mean? And then somebody else recommends something different. And it's just, it can be so overwhelming. So I feel like, no, right when I was diagnosed, I got online and I was so overwhelmed. And I like didn't necessarily know where to start. And luckily I got connected with a functional certified um, nurse practitioner. And that changed like everything for me. Like I always recommend getting, blood work and getting your personal like figuring out like what your PCOS is, like what supplements can you get on and how much to take based on. And I saw her and I was like just it was awesome and I felt like empowered finally for the first time in my journey.
Yeah. So
So
it was like a weight off of your shoulders. And I
yeah,
totally get that.
yeah. And too, like when I was diagnosed, I felt like something was wrong with me. Like I wasn't doing something like so I was like kind of shocked and overwhelmed and stressed that I had PCOS and I was sad and I was like, why me? Why do I have to deal with this? And my friends don't and they're just, don't have to think about this. And so yeah, I was struggling with that, but then at the same time I was feeling like happy and empowered because I finally had answers and it wasn't like I'm not making this up. Like I feel this way for a reason. And now I have like an exact, okay, like now at least I can move forward because I know what the issue is.
Yeah, that is a really big thing because I think that's something that most of us go through is it's like, yes, I finally know what I'm dealing with. And then it's like, oh crap,
Yes.
now what do I do about it?
Yes. Yes.
So
It's like, oh my gosh, finally. And then you're like, oh wow, there's so much out there on this.
yeah, yeah. And it's just like you said, finding that right person, that right
Mhm.
practitioner to help you kind of figure out what makes sense for you, and
Yeah.
just keeping in mind that it is about you as an individual. So
Right.
what were some of the biggest difficulties you faced with your symptoms and finding treatment for them?
Yeah. Anxiety and like mood kind of things, like swings and just like mental health, like that kind of stuff was like a big issue for me. Along with some like skin and acne things. Um, Feeling really tired and like sluggish, which this is common with a lot of women with PCOS. Like hypothyroidism can they can kind of go hand in hand. So I had a hypothyroidism, so like just the mood and like thinning hair and obviously irregular periods and then like could not lose weight at all. Didn't matter what I did, working out all the time, eating super healthy, eating less than I probably should have been, just
Yeah.
nothing was working and that messed with my mental, state. So it was just kind of like, yeah, a lot of those things.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up because that's one area of PCOS I don't think we talk enough about is how it affects
Yeah.
us emotionally and our
Yeah.
mood. And part of it can be hormonal, but also it's all the stress that we deal with this darn condition, with
Hmm.
management of symptoms, medications, like you said,
Hmm.
that all that overwhelming information that kind of
Which, I mean, and
floods you.
stress raises your cortisol, which is a hormone, and makes it all, it's like a cycle.
Right. And then the cortisol increases the insulin, which increases the it
Yeah.
is a wicked cycle. So
Hmm.
I think letting people know that's a very normal thing and it's
Hmm.
okay to have
Yeah.
emotions and feelings is so important. So
And like even now, I would say like I'm more of in like a maintenance mode, which
yeah,
I mean, I do still struggle with like the inability to lose weight, and that's frustrating. And I think that like, but I have like a handle on it, and I don't feel like as overwhelmed by it. But even now, like I have good days, and then I have days where I'm like, 5 years later, I'm like, this is so frustrating.
yeah,
Like, this sounds like, I mean, I'm just gonna say it because I think people think this is like, I look at my friend and I'm like, you can eat whatever you want and don't think twice about it and look good and feel good. And I'm like overthinking everything. And that's a personal journey I'm on, but like it does affect your mental health. And some days are good and some days it's harder.
absolutely. Because this is a lifelong condition, and
Mhm.
you have to like kind of walk this fine line. It's like darned if you do, darned if you don't. You try to do
Mhm.
everything right, but your brain is like you said, oh well, I would really like to have a piece of cheesecake. They can eat cheesecake. Why can't I?
Mhm.
It's difficult. And sometimes, again, we have to remember that we're human and it's okay to be human and it's okay
Mhm.
to indulge once in a while. It's okay to have bad days once in a while.
Absolutely.
So
I love that
thank you for
for sure.
sharing that.
Yeah,
So I know you started your blog, What Molly Made, before your PCOS
I
diagnosis.
did.
So how did the mission of your blog and ultimately your health change because of your diagnosis?
Yeah, it was, it's kind of fun to look back. I started my blog in 2016, so 2 years before I was diagnosed. And it's fun to look back like on the recipes in chronological order because you can kind of just see how my lifestyle changes over time. And I think that's cool about a food blog because it's like, it's a business, but it's also like I want to use it to help people. And I felt like I know I really debated when I was diagnosed, like what route to go because I was like, I wasn't necessarily doing like PCOS friendly recipes. And I felt like I was making all these recipes, but they weren't in line with like the lifestyle that I had, shifted to. And I was like, I think this is what I should be doing. And I just felt like I personally believe that like your pain is never wasted and that you can use your pain to help other people. And if I can take some of the weight off or the overwhelm off of some women who are where I was 5 years ago, I mean that means everything to me. It gives you a purpose in the pain, and you can use your pain to just help people. So I started sharing PCOS friendly recipes to help balance blood sugar, gluten free, dairy free, if that's the route that you feel like you need. Refined sugar free. I just really really honed in and focused on that. And now that I'm like, I did that when I was like really trying to heal, really wanted to have kids, get my cycle normal and all that. And then now that I'm kind of like more in a maintenance phase and like figuring all that out, I'm 5 years in, so I know what makes my body feel bad and what doesn't. And so, we do, chocolate chip cookies and cake because you can enjoy those and you can
Sure.
find balance. And it would be impossible and so stressful if you were just like, so black and white all the time. So I feel
Absolutely.
like now I've settled into a really good balance in terms of like recipes that we share of like just our holistic approach to like how our recipes and how we try to help people.
So for you, how empowering it has it been to create community and be part of a
Oh my gosh.
community.
It's been the coolest. I talk to women every day, mostly on Instagram, but like sometimes in emails and on the comments in my blog, and it's so cool. And I think that's just the best thing about like social media is that you can connect with so many people. It is such a force for good if you let it. And I've just been able to connect with so many women. And honestly, like when women take the time out of their day to message me to tell me like thank you so much, it means the world to me because and it makes me feel like okay, my story is making a difference and like my pain, there is a purpose in it. And like it just motivates me more to want to like share what I've learned. Because like along with recipes and things, I also decided to share my story on my blog. So
Yeah.
I have, lifestyle personal stories about like my blood work and like why I got off birth control and like just my diagnosis story and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of women go through the same thing. So it's cool to, you know, me too are such powerful words when you're not doing it alone.
No, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, because I was looking through all the different stuff on your blog and I was so blown away. And I'm like, oh my God, she gets it. Like being
Yeah.
able to share your story and what you go through is, oh God, it helps so many people
So much.
understand the syndrome and that they're not alone and they
That
don't
they're
have to
not
be
alone.
yeah, they don't have to
Yeah.
be isolated in all of this. So
Yes.
I
Like
love that.
everything you're feeling is valid and normal, and there is hope that it gets less overwhelming and easier.
Absolutely. So if you could change one thing about how PCOS is perceived, what would that
Yeah.
be?
I think the biggest thing would be like, it's not our fault. It's so much more complicated than just like eating too much sugar or like you have diabetes. Like it is so much deeper than that, and it is so much more difficult to handle than people think. So I think like the biggest thing I would want to tell people is that like be kind and like listen and like listen to women's stories who have it because it's hard. It's hard physically, it's hard emotionally, it's hard financially. Like, going to that many doctors is not cheap. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard. And I think yeah, I guess like just under people don't understand what it really is because kind of like how I was in high school and my sister was first diagnosed. Like I didn't know enough about it. And you just see the person physically and you make assumptions, and it's so much more than that.
It totally is. And did you ever receive any advice throughout your journey that has been like impactful that has stayed with you?
You need to be your biggest advocate. You know how your body feels. Don't let any doctor tell you that it's in your head. If you feel it, like, sadly, we have to be our biggest advocate. So I would say that, and then like finding a doctor that believes you and believes in you and is gonna run all the tests you want run and help you heal. And like in terms of like lifestyle and like just I think, balancing my blood sugar and sleeping more and getting my supplements, those three things have made such a huge difference for me.
It's so important. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
Yeah.
Molly, I would love you to share with everyone how can people connect with you through your blog, social media, your website, and kind of
Yeah.
like benefit from all this goodness that you share.
Yeah. You can visit my website, whatmollymade.com. If you go in the navigation, I have a whole PCOS page that has tons of PCOS recipes, all my blog posts about like my story. And then I do have a free PCOS email course. It's a 14-day free, yeah, PCOS email course that lots of people have taken that I spent a lot of time on. Instagram, I hang out there a lot. You'll be able to see my two kiddos. They're 7 months and just turned 3.
Wow.
What underscore Molly made. And then, my email, Pinterest, all the places, YouTube.
Awesome. I will make sure to share all of the links with everyone so they
Thank
can
you.
connect with you in all these wonderful multiple ways. And I thank you for taking the time to share your journey. I know it's not always an easy thing, but I've always found that the patient voice is the one thing that has the most impact in this community and with raising
Yes.
awareness.
I
So
love that. Yes.
yeah, so you're encouraging others to use their voice and to speak up and to encourage better understanding, better health, and better care moving forward in the future.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you for joining us for the interview today and the Heart for PCOS campaign, which is running throughout the month of February. I encourage you to get involved in events, in watching more videos, in educating others. And again, just like Molly did today, raising your voice and sharing your story. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.